At 1:59 p.m., I was the Senior VP of Global Accounts. At 2 p.m., I was unemployed. At 3 p.m., I was signing a $10 million contract with the one company they swore they'd destroy. I didn't plan revenge. They signed up for it. They say the best revenge is massive success. But sometimes, the best revenge is watching your replacement realize they just handed their biggest rival the keys to the kingdom. All it took was 1 hour, one phone call, and 12 years of relationships they forgot I owned. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and for 12 years, I built empires for other people. As Senior VP of Global Accounts at Hendrix Global Partners, I didn't just manage relationships. I cultivated them like a master gardener, knowing exactly which connections needed water, which needed pruning, and which would bloom into million-dollar deals. The Chicago skyline stretched outside my corner office window, a testament to how far I'd climbed. At 37, I was the youngest senior executive at HGP, responsible for accounts that generated 40% of the firm's annual revenue. CEOs took my calls. Board members requested my insights. I had turned down 3 headhunting offers in the past 6 months alone. Then Evan Blackstone arrived. Our new CEO swept in like a tornado in a Tom Ford suit, preaching disruption and cost optimization, Harvard MBA, McKinsey pedigree, and the emotional intelligence of a spreadsheet. In our first all-hands meeting, he'd looked directly at me and said, "Legacy thinking is the cancer of growth." I was apparently part of that cancer, a relic from the previous leadership who believed relationships mattered more than algorithms. The atmosphere at HGP shifted overnight. Morning coffee runs became intelligence-gathering missions. Lunch meetings turned into loyalty tests. Evan surrounded himself with a cadre of 20-somethings who spoke in acronyms and measured success in basis points. They called it right-sizing. We called it purging. I should have seen it coming when Evan started asking for detailed client contact lists. For transparency, when he insisted on joining my quarterly reviews with key accounts to better understand our partnerships. When his assistant began scheduling mysterious strategic alignment sessions that never included anyone over 35. But I was naive enough to believe that results mattered. Just that morning, I'd wrapped up preliminary negotiations with Ironcrest Holdings, our biggest competitor, for a potential $10 million joint venture that would revolutionize financial advisory services in the Midwest. It was the kind of deal that required finesse, trust, and the kind of institutional knowledge you couldn't learn from a PowerPoint deck. Jason Holt, Ironcrest's CEO, had been cautiously interested. "This could work, Lauren," he'd said over our coffee meeting, "but only if you're running point. I don't trust anyone else at HGP to execute this properly." He'd paused, then added with a knowing smile, "If you ever leave HGP, call me first." I'd laughed it off. Leave HGP? I'd bled corporate blue for this firm. I'd sacrificed weekends, relationships, and my entire 30s building something that mattered. The thought of leaving had never crossed my mind. As I sat in my office that afternoon, reviewing the Ironcrest proposal one final time, my phone buzzed. Evan's assistant. "Mr. Blackstone requests your presence in conference room A at 2 p.m. Please bring your laptop and company phone." I checked my calendar, nothing scheduled. My stomach tightened, a primal warning that 12 years of corporate survival had taught me to trust. But I grabbed my devices anyway, straightened my jacket, and walked toward what I didn't yet know would be my execution. Conference room. A felt like a morgue. Evan sat at the head of the table, flanked by HR Director Patricia Morse and some lawyer I'd never seen before. No pleasantries, no eye contact. Just 3 manila folders arranged with military precision. "Lauren, please sit," Evan said, his voice devoid of inflection. The digital clock on the wall clicked to 2 p.m. I sat. The leather chair that had cradled me through 1,000 negotiations suddenly felt like an electric chair. "We're letting you go, effective immediately." The words hung in the air like a bad smell. I waited for the punchline, the explanation, the something that would make this make sense. Patricia slid a folder across the table with practiced efficiency. "Budget restructuring. Evan continued, still not meeting my eyes. New strategic direction. Your position has been eliminated. My position generates 40% of... Generated, Evan corrected, finally looking at me with the cold satisfaction of a man who'd been planning this moment. Past tense. Your assistant has already boxed your personal items. Security will escort you out after you sign. I opened the folder. Termination agreement. 2 weeks severance. An insult after 12 years. A non-disclosure clause as thick as my wrist. But buried in the legal jargon, I found what I was looking for. No non-compete clause. In their haste to cut costs, they'd used the standard termination template. You're making a mistake, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Evan leaned back, a smirk playing at his lips. The only mistake was keeping redundant executives who think relationship building is a business strategy. My team can handle your accounts at half the cost. Your team doesn't even know that Jim Morrison at Apex hates email and only does business over lunch. That Sarah Chen at Meridian won't sign anything during Mercury retrograde. That David Park at Superstitions and Expensive Lunches. Evan interrupted. Sign the papers, Lauren. It's over. My hand trembled as I signed my name, but not from sadness. From rage. Pure, crystallized rage that turned my vision sharp and my mind razor-focused. I slid the folder back across the table. There. Done. I stood, gathering my laptop and phone to surrender them. Just one question. Evan, do you know what I was working on this morning? He shrugged, already mentally moving on to his next meeting. It doesn't matter anymore. Ironcrest Holdings. $10 million joint venture. Preliminary terms agreed. I placed my devices on the table with deliberate calm. Jason Holt was very specific. He'd only work with me. Guess that deal just became irrelevant too. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Evan's face, but his ego quickly smothered it. We don't need Ironcrest. They're yesterday's news. Patricia stood, gesturing toward the door where a security guard waited. Ms. Mitchell, if you'll follow. No need, I said, walking toward the door with my head high. I know the way out. I've built half this company. As the elevator descended, taking me away from 12 years of my life, I pulled out my personal phone. Jason Holt's number was still in my recent calls from this morning. Outside, Chicago's November rain had started to fall, matching the storm brewing in my chest. 2:14 p.m. I had just become the most dangerous person in Evan Blackstone's professional life. He just didn't know it yet. The November rain hit my face like 1,000 tiny wake-up calls. I stood on the sidewalk outside HGP's gleaming tower, designer heels soaking through, watching my former colleagues hurry past with averted eyes. Funny how fast you become invisible once you're on the wrong side of the glass doors. My thumb hovered over Jason Holt's number. 12 years of corporate protocol screamed at me to wait, to process, to plan. But corporate protocol had just kicked me to the curb with 2 weeks severance. I hit call, 2 rings, that's all it took. Lauren? Jason's voice carried surprise and something else, anticipation. I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. Everything all right with the proposal? Jason. I ducked under a nearby awning, rain drumming overhead. Remember what you said this morning, about calling you first? A pause. I could practically hear him sitting up straighter. What happened? HGP just made the biggest mistake of their fiscal year. They let me go. 15 minutes ago. You're joking? Do I sound like I'm joking? Another pause, longer this time. Then, where are you? Standing in the rain outside their building like a cliché. Can you be at my office in 20 minutes? I glanced at my watch. 2:17 p.m. Rush hour hadn't hit yet. Make it 15. Lauren. His voice dropped lower, serious. Bring everything you remember about that joint venture. Everything. The line went dead. I hailed a cab, my mind already shifting from shock to strategy. Every client preference, every pain point, every opportunity HGP had been too slow to capitalize on. It all crystallized in my mind like a battle plan. The cabbie glanced at me in the rearview mirror as I slid in, soaking wet. Rough day. Getting better by the minute, I said, giving him Ironcrest's address. Step on it. As Chicago blurred past the rain-streaked windows, I let myself think about what I was about to do. 12 years of loyalty, dissolved in a 5-minute meeting. They hadn't just fired me, they'd fired me without understanding what I represented. The relationships, the institutional knowledge, the deals in progress that required more than a LinkedIn connection and a firm handshake. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer, my former assistant. Security is going through your office. Evan's team is already calling your clients. I'm so sorry. Already calling my clients? The arrogance of it made me laugh, a sharp, bitter sound that made the cabbie glance back again. They thought relationships were just entries in a CRM system. They were about to learn otherwise. We pulled up to Ironcrest's building at 2:31 p.m. I paid the driver and stood for a moment, looking up at their offices. Smaller than HGP's tower, but solid, established. A company that understood the value of what they were about to acquire. I smoothed my damp hair, squared my shoulders, and walked through their doors. The security guard looked up, recognition flickering across his face. Ms. Mitchell? Mr. Holt said to send you straight up. Executive elevator to the 40th floor. As the elevator climbed, I made my choice. This wasn't about revenge, this was about survival. And if HGP happened to burn in the process, well, they'd lit the match themselves. Jason Holt's corner office was everything Evan Blackstone's wasn't. Warm, lived in, with photos of family and framed handshake pictures with clients spanning 2 decades. He stood as I entered, his expression a mix of opportunity and disbelief. Lauren, you look like a drowned cat who's about to eat a canary. He handed me a towel from his private bathroom. Coffee? Something stronger if you have it. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. Irish. Seems appropriate for the occasion. I took a sip. Let it burn. They fired me at 2 p.m. No warning, no cause, just restructuring. Idiots. He said it simply, like stating the weather. Their loss? Let's talk about how it becomes my gain. The joint venture. Forget the joint venture. Jason leaned against his desk, studying me. I want something bigger. I want you. I set down my glass. I'm listening. Executive VP of Strategic Accounts. Full benefits. Signing bonus that'll make you forget HGP ever existed. He pulled out a folder, not manila, but leather-bound. And your first assignment would be closing a certain $10 million deal we've been discussing. The same deal. Modified. Better. His smile turned predatory. See, when we were negotiating with HGP, we had to account for their overhead, their bureaucracy, their inability to move fast. Without them, we can offer clients 20% more value at the same price point. I opened the folder. The number at the bottom of the offer letter made my breath catch. This is triple your HGP salary, plus commission, plus equity. He moved to his window, overlooking the Chicago River. I've wanted you on my team for 5 years, Lauren. Every time we've sat across a negotiation table, I've thought about what we could accomplish on the same side. There's no non-compete in my termination agreement, I said, still processing the numbers. They were too cheap to use the executive template. Jason actually laughed. Of course they were, penny wise, pound foolish. So what do you say? I thought about Evan's smirk, Patricia's practiced efficiency, the security guard waiting to escort me out like a criminal. Then I thought about 12 years of 60-hour weeks, of relationships built one lunch at a time, of deals crafted through trust and intuition rather than algorithms. I need to make one thing clear, I said, meeting his eyes. If I do this, HGP won't just lose the Ironcrest deal. They'll lose everything I've touched. I'm counting on it. He extended his hand. Welcome to Ironcrest, Lauren. I shook it, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. When do I start? How about now? He hit his intercom. Margaret, can you bring in the Apex Financial folder and get Jim Morrison on the line? My eyes widened. Jim Morrison is your client too. About to be. He called an hour ago, fishing around about our services. Mentioned he was unhappy with some changes at HGP. Jason's grin widened. Funny how fast word travels in Chicago. Margaret entered with contracts, notary seal at the ready. As I signed my name, for the second time that day, but this time with steady hands, Jason's phone rang. Morrison? Yes, she's right here, just came aboard. He handed me the phone. He wants to talk to you. I checked my watch as I took the receiver. 2:58 p.m. Jim? It's Lauren. Yes, I'm at Ironcrest now. The 10 million, we're modifying it as we speak. Of course, lunch tomorrow works perfectly. As Jim Morrison pledged his business to wherever I landed, I caught Jason making a note. Deal closed, 3 p.m. Somewhere across town. Evan Blackstone had no idea his kingdom had already started to crumble. The news broke at 4:47 p.m., strategically timed for maximum impact. Bloomberg picked it up first. Ironcrest Holdings poaches senior VP from Hendrix Global, secures major Midwest partnership. By 5:15, it was everywhere. I sat in my new office, smaller than my HGP corner suite but with the same killer view, watching the dominoes fall on 3 monitors. Email notifications flooded in. Former colleagues expressing shock, competitors circling like sharks, clients asking careful questions. Jason knocked and entered without waiting. Evan Blackstone just called me personally, used some colorful language about corporate ethics and stealing proprietary relationships. And I told him to check his termination paperwork. Then I hung up. He dropped into a chair, looking entirely too pleased. Legal says we're bulletproof. They fired you without cause or restrictions. Every client who follows you is making a free market choice. My phone buzzed. Sarah Thompson from Meridian Investments. Heard the news. Lunch Thursday to discuss moving our portfolio. Then David Park from Clearwater. Congratulations on the move. BTW, our HGP contract is up for renewal next month. How many? Jason asked, watching me field text after text. 6 inquiries so far, all Tier 1 accounts. Jesus. He whistled low. They really had no idea what they were throwing away. Margaret knocked, poking her head in. Ms. Mitchell, there's an emergency board meeting being called at HGP. My friend in their PR department says it's chaos over there. Apparently, Mr. Blackstone is demanding to know how the Ironcrest deal details leaked. I pulled up HGP's stock price. Down 3% in after-hours trading. They're about to learn that relationships aren't just line items on a spreadsheet. Speaking of relationships, Jason said, standing. I've scheduled a welcome reception for you tomorrow. Nothing huge, just 40 or 50 of Chicago's most influential financial players. Give them a chance to hear about Ironcrest's new strategic direction. 40 or 50 of Evan's biggest targets. You mean? Pure coincidence. His smile suggested otherwise. Oh. And Lauren? That modification to the original deal we discussed? Legal finished the paperwork. We're not just matching HGP's proposed terms, we're beating them by 30%. Amazing what we can do without their bloated overhead. After he left, I sat in the gathering dusk, watching the city lights flicker on. My phone showed 17 missed calls from HGP numbers. I deleted them all unheard. Jennifer texted again. Evan just called in all hands, says the Ironcrest situation is contained and minor. Nobody believes him. 3 more senior managers turned in notice today. I poured myself another whiskey from the bottle Jason had left. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean and gleaming. Somewhere in that maze of glass and steel, Evan Blackstone was learning what happened when you confused cost-cutting with strategy, when you mistook relationships for redundancies. Another text, this time from a number I didn't recognize. This is Tom Bradley from the Tribune. Would love to interview you about your move to Ironcrest and what it means for Chicago's financial services landscape. I smiled, typing back, happy to chat. How's Thursday morning? By the time I left the office at 9 p.m., I'd fielded inquiries worth potentially $30 million in managed assets. All from relationships Evan thought were worthless. All from clients who understood that trust wasn't something you could algorithm away. The war had begun, and I'd already won the first 3 battles. 1 week later, the Ritz-Carlton's grand ballroom hummed with the kind of energy that made deals happen. Strategic innovation in financial services. That's what we'd called the event. 200 of Chicago's most influential players all gathered to hear Ironcrest's vision for the future. A vision that, coincidentally, looked exactly like what HGP should have been doing. I stood at the podium, watching familiar faces fill the room. Jim Morrison front and center, Sarah Thompson chatting with David Park, even some brave souls from HGP's middle management, their loyalty to Evan already wavering. Innovation, I began, letting my voice carry across the crystal and white linen, isn't about disrupting relationships. It's about deepening them. It's not about cutting costs. It's about creating value. In the back, behind a cluster of journalists, I spotted him, Evan Blackstone, trying to blend into the shadows near the service entrance. Security had instructions to let him get as far as the doorway, no further. At Ironcrest, we believe the future of financial services lies not in algorithms replacing human judgment, but in technology empowering it, not in treating clients like data points, but as partners in success. I clicked to the next slide, a case study featuring the exact framework I'd developed at HGP, now refined and improved. Several audience members glanced toward the back, having noticed Evan's presence. The whispers started. Let me share a recent success story. Last week, we closed a transformative partnership that will revolutionize how mid-market firms access institutional-grade financial services. This deal, valued at $10 million, initially has already expanded to encompass 3 additional verticals. Evan stepped forward, trying to push past the subtle security barrier. Marcus, our head of security, placed a professional hand on his shoulder. Their quiet exchange was lost in the applause, but I could read Evan's face from across the room. Fury, disbelief, the dawning realization of how badly he'd miscalculated. Some firms believe in burning bridges, I continued, making direct eye contact with him. At Ironcrest, we build them. Some see experience as overhead to be eliminated. We see it as an investment that pays exponential dividends. Margaret appeared at Evan's side, handing him a formal letter. A cease and desist, no doubt, preventing him from disrupting our private event. He crumpled it without reading, but Marcus's presence made the message clear. Leave now, or be escorted out less gracefully. In closing, I want to thank everyone who's placed their trust in our vision. To our new clients who've joined us this week, I smiled at the 2 former HGP accounts sitting in the 3rd row. Welcome to a partnership that values your success above our spreadsheets. The applause was thunderous as I stepped down, accepting congratulations and handshakes. I caught one last glimpse of Evan retreating through the service door. His shoulders slumped in defeat, his Tom Ford suit somehow looking cheap under the harsh exit lighting. Brilliant presentation. Jim Morrison pumped my hand. That bit about valuing relationships? That's why I'm moving all of Apex's business to Ironcrest, all $45 million of it. Behind him, Sarah Thompson nodded. Meridian's board voted this morning. We're following suit. I smiled, gracious in victory. We're honored by your trust. But inside, I thought of Evan, probably rage-dialing his board members from the parking garage. You fired me at 2. By 3:0, I'd signed the deal that started your downfall. The difference was, he'd finally figured it out too. The Wall Street Journal ran the headline 3 weeks later. Hendricks Global Partners CEO steps down amid client exodus. The accompanying photo showed Evan Blackstone leaving HGP's building, boxes in hand, the same walk of shame he'd orchestrated for so many others. I read the article over my morning coffee, feeling nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication. Just the quiet acknowledgement that actions have consequences, and hubris has a price. Hendrix Global Partners announced today that CEO Evan Blackstone has resigned to pursue other opportunities following a catastrophic third quarter that saw the firm lose 60% of its major accounts and $2.3 billion in assets under management. The exodus began when Senior VP Lauren Mitchell was terminated without warning. Taking with her 12 years of client relationships and institutional knowledge, Jason Naughton entered, dropping the Tribune on my desk. Another headline: Ironcrest Holdings reports record quarter, expands Midwest operations. Funny how that worked out, he said, settling into his usual chair. By the way, the board approved your proposal for the new client relationship division. Full autonomy, your own team, budget that would make Evan weep. He made his choice, I said, closing the journal. He thought relationships were expendable. He learned otherwise. Speaking of which, Jason slid another folder across. Blackstone's replacement at HGP reached out. Wants to discuss a partnership. Seems they've rediscovered the value of experience and relationships. I laughed. A real laugh this time, not the bitter thing from 3 weeks ago. Tell them I'm busy, building something better. My phone buzzed. Jennifer, now happily employed at a boutique firm, texted. Heard Evan's new job is at a strip mall financial services firm in Schaumburg, commission only. Karma's beautiful. I turned to the window, looking out at the city I'd helped build. One relationship at a time. Somewhere out there, Evan was learning what I'd known all along. You can't algorithm your way through trust. You can't spreadsheet loyalty. And you definitely can't fire someone at 2 p.m. and expect your empire to survive past 3 pies. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Mitchell, your 10 a.m. is here. The delegation from Goldman Sachs? Send them in, Margaret. As I prepared to welcome another opportunity that once would have gone to HGP, I thought about that rainy afternoon 5 weeks ago, standing on the sidewalk, soaked and shell-shocked. I'd thought my world was ending. Instead, it was beginning. Evan had given me the greatest gift imaginable. He'd set me free. Free to build something meaningful. Free to prove that relationships weren't relics of the past but the foundation of the future. Free to show that when you treat people as expendable, you become expendable yourself. The Goldman team entered, all smiles and handshakes. As I welcomed them to Ironcrest, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. Confident, successful. Exactly where I was meant to be. Some might call it revenge. I called it justice. Natural selection in the corporate ecosystem, where those who forget that business is ultimately about people don't survive long enough to make the same mistake twice. You fired me at 2. By 3, I'd already won. Thank you for listening to this story of corporate karma and sweet revenge. I'm curious, where are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let me know which city or country you're tuning in from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and share your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed instant karma in the workplace? I'd love to hear your experiences.